Hello and welcome to the channel Gang and Peanut, two peas in a pod. And today is the beginning of March and spring is beginning to sprung. So today we're going to be looking at sowing some seeds, and we're going to be sowing the granddaddy of them all, and that is cabbage. And we'll also be talking about other brassicas and how to sow them, how to grow them, and a little bit about some of the pests that like to try and eat them before you. When sowing seeds in March, which is the conventional time of the year to be sowing the majority of seeds, you have to be aware of the frost dates, or the last frost date in your area. And where I am in the UK, in the southeastern part of the UK, the last frost date for me here is the very end of March, beginning of April. So that's about 4 weeks away. So if I sow these seeds today, in 4 weeks time they would have grown on as seedlings, they would have been moved on into another pot, and a couple of weeks after that, weather dependent, because it could still be cold, it could still be raining, it could still be awful weather, but fingers crossed they'll be able to go out. In about 6 weeks I'll be able to put these outside, either in the allotment, in the garden, or they can be grown in containers. Indeed, some people grow cabbages in containers, not necessarily just to eat, sometimes they're for show. And sometimes they're ornamental, because you can get ornamental cabbages which have got reds and blues, and they do look quite stunning, some of them. Also, at the moment in March, daylight hours are increasing, and currently where I am in the UK, they're increasing at nearly 3 minutes per day. So come the end of March, we could well have over an hour of extra daylight, which is what the plants need to help them grow. So let's have a look at what I'm going to be sowing. All of these are part of the Brassica family, and the Brassica family, or the Brassica group of plants, includes broccoli and Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, kohlrabi, I think that's how you pronounce it. First thing we're sowing today is cabbage. It's a cabbage called Greyhound. I've grown it before. It's a smaller, compact cabbage, which grows quite a pointed head. They do look very attractive. They're quite trouble-free to grow. They can be used as early greens, or you can leave them to grow on and form a heart. And they are very, very nice, small, compact cabbage. I'm also growing cauliflower. This variety is Snowball A. And cauliflowers are notoriously difficult to grow. This one's a more compact variety, I believe, produces smaller heads. It's quite a fast maturing variety, so I'm going to give it a try and we'll see what happens. And this is broccoli. It's an F1 Gemini, I believe it's called. And look at that purple head, that's fantastic. And I think, according to the packet, it says it takes 80 days from sowing to harvest. Interesting, we shall see. So we've got our seeds. What we need to do now is get some compost and some trays. Let's get sowing. Here's an interesting cabbage fact. Did you know that in China, about 1000 BC, it was said that if a man put cabbage leaves on his head, it could possibly be a cure for baldness? I might just give it a go. As with most seed growing, the compost needs to be quite fine. So I'm sieving this compost to remove all the lumps and bumps and the bits and bobs that get left behind. I use to grow my potatoes in. So we'll sieve this through, and as you can see, there's quite a few lumpy bumpy bits left behind, and as I grow my potatoes in them, I think I'm going to call them spud lumps. So let's dispense with these spud lumps and see what the compost looks like. That looks nice and soft and friable and easy for the roots of the newly germinated seedling to be able to get through. Now, what I'm going to use for these seedlings is one of these trays here. I'm going to fill this with the compost. It doesn't need to be too deep, that should just about do it. I'm then going to wet that compost a bit, let it soak through, and then I'm going to scatter some of these greyhound cabbage on one side and some of these cauliflower snowball on the other. Now, with packets of seed, when you open them, some of them come with a little packet inside and others don't come with a little packet inside. So before you open any, always give them a little tap down so they go to the bottom, because you may find you open it, the seeds are at the top and you lose lots of your seeds. So let's take some of these seeds out and I will show you these seeds. They're very, very, very tiny. And it always amazes me that these tiny seeds end up producing sometimes quite a large plant. So let me sprinkle a few on the top. I don't want too many because I won't have the space in my allotment, and I may grow some in containers this year as an experiment. I won't have the space to grow hundreds and hundreds of them, so pop them back in there, fold the top over. That's that done. What I will do is I will separate the two, just popping that in there so I know what's on each side. I'm going to take the cabbage seeds, again give them a little flick down. I know the seeds are now at the bottom. Let's open the top. There we go. And these seeds look equally as small, tiny little chaps. So let's give them a little sprinkle in there, and that's where they'll live until they pop their heads through. Let's put a little bit more compost on that, back on the top of them. And because they're very small seeds, you don't need to bury them very deep in the compost. They're tiny little seeds, so don't go burying them under an inch of compost, because that won't be any good for them at all. So there we go. I will now label them up, pop the lid on. They should be fine underneath here, they should germinate. I will close the top up until they do. Yep. And when they germinate, I can open this up for a few days and then eventually remove the lid altogether. That's those sown. Now, as you can see here, these are a couple of broccoli that I sowed in the beginning of February. Exactly the same method. They've now been moved on into these 3.5 inch pots where they will grow away quite happily until it's time to plant them out in the allotment, where they're going to have to fend for themselves to some degree, because there are plenty of pests that will want to eat them. These little chaps will be going out probably the beginning of April, and they will face one or two dangers, perils. They will be slugs and snails, possibly aphids, pigeons that want to eat them when they're young for the leaves. And the nemesis of all gardeners in the UK, the cabbage white butterfly that lays its eggs on the leaves of all brassicas. They hatch out into caterpillars, and the caterpillar can completely destroy a plant in no time at all. So with caterpillars, or the cabbage white butterfly, and the pigeons, a deterrent is net your crop so they can't get to them. Slugs and snails can be dealt with beer traps and eggshells and various other tried and tested methods. And a disease also that brassicas can suffer from is club root. And one of the ways to combat this is to add lime to the soil prior to planting, or do what I do. I also add some garden lime granules to the planting hole at the time that I'm planting these into the allotment. Or another option is, if you have clubroot on your plot, is possibly to try a clubroot resistant variety, of which there are several at the moment, I believe. Never used them myself. If you've used them, let me know which variety you found best by leaving a comment down below. Now, I know that the cabbage and the cauliflower and the broccoli, and indeed all brassicas, are not the glamour plants of the vegetable world. And they can take up a bit of space. And they do have one or two pests and diseases. However, I think they're well worth making space for and well worth bothering to grow. Spring is sprung. March has arrived. The temperatures are rising. The days are drawing out. This is the time where we sow lots of seeds. So, happy sowing and happy growing to you. And I'll see you on my next video. And as ever, from Gang and Peanut, 2 peas in a pod. Until next time, take care.